What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Praise Podcast. This is episode 4. My name is Eric Lide, and of course, I am joined alongside the Brooke Peninsky is in the house, and we are looking forward to just having a conversation today. I want to remind you that if you have not gone back and listened to the first 3 episodes, it's kind of important you do that. Not because we want you to listen to the first 3 episodes, but we do, and that is kind of like the heart and the background of not only us, but this podcast, our goals, our missions, our visions for what we're doing here. And we would love for everybody to be on the same page with us as we go through this journey that is the Praise Podcast. So if you haven't listened to those 3, we just need you to pause this right now. We will still be here when you come back. Just pause this, go back, listen to the first 3 episodes, and you'll get caught up, and we will all be on the same page as to what we are doing. And of course, you can also like and hit that subscribe button or the follow button, and that is going to keep you up to date every time we drop a new episode, as well as leave us a rating or review, preferably the nice kinds of reviews and the good kind of ratings, because that helps us get seen by more people and gets this podcast out to a broader audience, which we would love to have this message be heard and listened to by more people. So if you can do all that for us, so that's your list of to-dos before we get into this episode, that'd be awesome. You're awesome. We're excited to talk today. Brooke, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I am chuckling because A, you nail that every time, and B, that's a long list.
It is. There's a lot of things that they need to do today, which is ironic, kind of off the topic that we are going to talk about as well. We're just handing out to-do lists today.
Yeah.
So, Brooke and I were kind of talking about, we actually had something else that we were going to do for this episode, and it just kind of fell through for today. And in our times to try to get some of these episodes recorded, we always find ourselves like, we have to schedule this into our schedule to do, because if we don't, it just will not happen. So it kind of led us to, we're like, well, what should we talk about on this episode? And then some episodes write themselves, and we're like, well, we really just don't have a lot of time, and we got to figure this out and this out. And we're like, maybe we should talk about busyness. Maybe this is the Lord's way of saying, you guys need to have a conversation around your schedules. So, ironically enough, I also told Brooke, I said, now, if we're going to talk about this, I am the least qualified or least kind of person that people should be taking advice on busyness and schedules from, because I am the worst at just being busy. So I think Brooke's going to kind of act as my counselor today.
This is so fun.
Yeah, she might lecture me for a bit, which is okay. But yeah, so Brooke, I guess my first question, as somebody who just sucks at being too busy all the time, like I'm really just not good at it. And I know, and I don't say this, I mean, Brooke is a equally busy person. I mean, we're talking 3 kids, a husband, multiple jobs, owns her own business. So, I mean, like, it's not like she's just sitting on the couch eating bonbons, but I feel like you maybe do a little bit better job of at least managing your to-dos, and probably a little bit better job of telling people no than I do. So my first question, as somebody who stinks at this, Brooke, would be like, how have you figured out ways to put in some like how do you say no, and how do you put in boundaries to keep yourself at least normally busy and not crazy busy?
Sure. Well, yeah, I do live a very busy lifestyle, and actually, just last week, my dear friend Lauren, she is recovering from surgery, and I was bringing her dinner, and then her mom was over there, and she's literally like my mom, and so we're sitting on the couch visiting, and Mom looks at me, and she's like, Brooke, you can't just keep going this pace. You just can't keep going this pace forever. And that was a good day for me. Like, I felt I was doing great and had all this time. So, I mean, it's not that I'm not busy as well, and there are probably people in my life who love me and care about me who probably think I am too busy, but I do feel like, especially in the last, for sure 6 months, because that's when we got, our 3 foster kids in a matter of 30 minutes, right? So I think, especially in the last 6 months, this has taken a lot of pruning. So I do feel like I'm not just out of that season. I think I'm still walking through that boundary season, but I have learned a lot. He's taught me a lot about that. And of course, several people who I love who, encourage me to, whether it's wanted or not wanted. It is needed, and they love me. So anyways, to answer your question, I would say the number one thing for me, and especially me and Hayden, would be prioritizing like what absolutely has to get done and what really isn't that important. And going from just us, everything seemed important, but then going from just us, now we're both in full-time ministry. We have 3 kids to take care of and all the things. It's your priorities change. And so I think just being prayerful too of God placing those priorities or opening your eyes to what those priorities should be and should look like. And I think what's really cool about, John right now is he is super aware of just the importance of family, and his heart is for, the Lord to be restoring and to be teaching and making families stronger. And so then I feel like, okay, well, I fall under your leadership. And if that's how you feel and what you think, then I need to reflect on that too. And so, my priorities are my family before other things for sure. And so right now that's a husband, 2 dogs, and 3 foster kids is my family right now. And so just prioritizing what they need from me and what, they need to thrive, and just kind of, I don't know, making it as simple of a schedule as possible and sticking to it. Then you have to say no when that comes up, making a schedule and a routine. And Maria told me to get this, is it Cozy Calendar? I think it's an app on our phone. Hey, night, we have this app on our phone now. And it's literally how we function. We have all the things just in this calendar, the shared calendar, because there's just so much going on now. So, that would probably be what I would start with. I don't know if actually that answered the question or not. I just kind of kept talking, but I don't know. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah. No, I think it's because I would imagine, and it's so weird because, a year ago, 18 months ago, like the world shut down.
Yeah.
And then it felt like, we were all sitting at home or, doing whatever it was that we were doing, trying to figure out how to work or trying to figure out how to teach or, all the things that was going on. And then to come out of that, and now, it feels like everyone is just busier than ever. I don't know if it's because we're like making up for all the quote lost time from that, but it's interesting to me. I would imagine that if you're listening to this, you probably are somebody right now that sits there and feels like, man, I'm just too busy. Like,
I'm sure you're listening to this podcast while driving or running or doing cooking, or you're definitely multitasking in the moment, I'm sure.
Yeah. So. And so I think everyone relates to busyness, and we're all busy on different levels and in different ways. But I think everybody relates to this idea of busyness. And you said an interesting thing in there that I think it really comes down to is like, what are your priorities? Like, what do you prioritize? Because that is what, you're going to say yes to, hopefully, whatever your priorities are. And I was joking with Brooke. I said, it's actually really bad because, like, for me, people know when I'm going to out myself here, but like if I say no to something, that means I really don't want to do it. Like I have no...
Because you don't really say no
I don't
ever.
really say no ever. And so when I do say no, I always feel bad because I'm like, they probably know that I really just don't want to do that. And it's not like anything against whatever it is. It's just, I say yes a lot, but what I do say yes to, I try to at least make sure that whatever I'm saying yes to aligns with, whatever my goals and my priorities and, my vision for my family or whatever. And I know there's probably a saying out there that you've probably heard, but saying yes to something means you're saying no to something else. So anytime we say yes, we're automatically saying no to something else. So like saying yes to going to work means you're saying no to sitting at home and, doing home projects, or saying yes to going on this work trip means you're saying no to being at home with your family, And so it's like anytime we say yes, we're automatically saying no to something else. I know that, but I think I forget that a lot. And it's tough because in our world, in ministry, there's so many things that are thrown at us, so many opportunities that are thrown at us that are all inherently good things.
Right.
They're not bad things.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say no to a lot of that, because it feels like, I think my struggle, we're getting to the inner part of my struggle here, Brooke.
I already know what you're about to say.
My inner struggle is, I feel like if I don't say yes, nobody else will.
Yeah.
And then if nobody else says yes, then it doesn't happen.
But even more so, yeah. And then the guilt that I think follows if you say no, and then that person that asked you, like, you feel like you let them down or something, that to me is always a stinger too, because you're like, oh, I don't want to disappoint you, but no, I don't want to, or no, I'm unavailable, or no, I just can, or whatever. But I don't know. There's something about being able to finally say no that feels really good, especially when it's out of a place of biblical priorities. And that's the kicker, especially, Maria and Jared have been really nice to have on here. Phone them in really fast because they are right now walking, and I know they wouldn't mind me saying this. They are walking, how would I say, honoring the Sabbath day, right. Like keeping one day for your family. That's not work. That's not chores. That's not, an obligation. And it really is just something that's fun, that brings joy. And it's like, this is a good day. So hearing testimony from Maria on that, and like what that's done for their marriage and then for their kids, and just, individually for all of them, it's been really encouraging. But there's a reason why the Lord says to keep the Sabbath day holy. And so I think, in our culture and in our normal, because we are so busy, what in the world is a Sabbath day? What is a day to actually not do anything? And it really is just, you have to be intentional about what day is that, or does it change throughout the week, or what time frame is it, or something, but like to keep yourself free from obligations and just to be able to rest. Rest is biblical as well.
Yeah. And that is where I think some people are much better at that than others, but I think for the majority, our culture doesn't seem to reward rest.
Yeah. Like, rest means lazy, and that's not always true. Yeah. It depends on how you manipulate the situation, sure. But I mean, rest does not equate to laziness. And honestly, I don't think laziness is always rest either, depending on how you look at it. So,
yeah, because I mean, what does rest look like for Brooke Peninsky? Like, if you were going to have a Sabbath day, like what does that look like?
Well, I mean, it could go either two ways. A Sabbath day for me could either be literally doing nothing. Okay. Well, a perfect example of this was, Libby and I had plans for Mod Threads to be at a vendor event one weekend, and it got rained out in the last minute. And so I literally woke up Saturday morning with the agenda. Okay, we have to be there at 6 a.m. and we need to set up, and we will be here till 7 o'clock at night, whatever. And Sunday right after church, I needed done, canceled in a moment because of the rain. And so I didn't even have time to make plans to fill the time that plan was, going to be taking in my day. I could not remember the last time that I had a Saturday morning where I woke up and I didn't have anything that I had to do. And that was restful. I could just be. And I didn't have to worry about, I could get this done and this done and this done really fast around the house before I have to go and meet or do or go whatever. I didn't have anyone waiting for me. I didn't have anybody needing anything from me. I didn't have anything that needed to be taken care of. It was just amazing. So honestly, that was the first day that I've had in forever that consists of nothing. But it also, rest for me is fellowship with others. If it's the fellowship that I like partaking in, if it really is with your, dear friends, and you're going to go do something together that brings you joy and good conversation and obviously good food and coffee, that to me is restful, because I'm not working and I'm not pouring myself out, but instead it's something that I feel like I'm being poured into, which to me that kind of feels like rest. Yeah. I just feel rejuvenated after, a day spent doing that kind of stuff. Even though I wasn't home, but I felt at peace because I was just so filled up. So I don't know. I don't know if that's right, but that's at least how I look at it.
I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but I do feel like I think this is part of my struggle, is when I think of rest, I think of like quiet time, or, like just being by yourself and reading a book.
But you have 2 kids as well, and so that probably is really difficult.
But that's like in my mind, and in my mind, that's literally like the most miserable thing I could be doing is just being by myself, like in a quiet space, like being forced to read, or, just like be by myself. And I think as we've talked about many times on this, we are both Enneagram 7s. And so, like being around other people rejuvenates me. Like I am as far on the extrovert scale as extrovert can be. Cause I know, like, for introverted people, they can only be around so many people for so long before they're just maxed out. I'm the opposite. Like, people give me energy. Like, being around people gives me
nice people
I want to be around. Yes. Some other people, they definitely drain your energy. Draining.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
I'll rephrase it. People that I want to be around gives me energy. And like you said, like, being able to go somewhere with a group of friends or a group, to hang out. And obviously now, as we both know, and if you're listening to this, you probably know, if you have kids, those opportunities become less and less because, and the people you hang out with probably also have kids, and it's just not as easy to get together. Even just taking a date night between you and your spouse is a difficult thing that has to be planned out weeks, if not months ahead.
Right.
And so I think for me, we had a similar, as actually I think this exact same Saturday. So maybe the Lord was doing something, because it was last Saturday, was this Saturday. And so I've been doing a lot of house projects, and we've just been working on a lot of different things. And I typically will sometimes help my dad at his store on Saturdays, and I didn't have to be there because we were supposed to have a soccer game, and then we were supposed to have a birthday party, and then after that birthday party, we were supposed to go and get ready for a wedding, and then after this wedding, we were supposed to go to a bonfire. That was our Saturday.
Friday night at church, you were talking about that, and you literally made a point to say, because someone asked you about something like what you were doing, and if you were busy, and you're like, well, I've got, and you listed like 17 things, and you're like, but I could fit it in, or something like that. Yeah,
it's that.
With what time?
Very very stereotypical, but there's always an opportunity.
Yeah.
But so, anyways, this was all planned out. Well, then of course it rained.
Yeah.
And so soccer got canceled. Birthday party got canceled. And so we literally, and then because of all that, I wasn't going to work at the store. I was going to be just home to be able to do all this other stuff, help Adrian with the kids. And so we literally just found ourselves what do we do? Like, we have literally nothing to do now scheduled. And it was the first Saturday that I was like, there's some yard work I could do. And so it had kind of stopped raining.
You had a porch to paint.
Yeah,
too.
And I was waiting for it to kind of dry out a little bit from all the rain.
Yeah.
And then I literally, again, the more I think about this, the more I'm like, this may very well have been a God thing. I went outside to, I had waited around 2-3 hours because I was like, okay, things are dry. I had some high grass I wanted to mow down, weed eat, whatever. I got the mower out, went out there, started mowing, was mowing for maybe 30 seconds, and it just pours. It starts pouring. Hadn't rained for 3, nothing on the radar. Just starts pouring on me. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to stand out here and mow in the rain. So I went in. I told her, well, I tried, I guess. I tried to be productive today. And so I went, and Bo climbed up on the couch, and I sat and watched. I'm a huge Michigan football fan. And I sat and watched a Michigan football game from start to finish for probably the first time in years. And I just sat there and watched it. And I ate snacks, and that was it. That was my Saturday.
Maybe the Lord was working on us.
I don't know, because
that was exactly
the more
my
I think
Saturday
about it,
too.
it was just one of the more busier Saturdays we had planned in a while.
Yeah.
And then, it was just all of a sudden,
nothing.
Everything was just wiped out. And I remember thinking in those moments, as I'm sure you also feel, I was just like, man, this is so unproductive. There's so many things I could be doing. But then I was like, I kind of like just sitting here doing nothing. But then I'm like, but I also hate it but I like it. And it
But
was a
okay, so
weird-
here's a question, because that's kind of something that Hayden, will go back and forth with, because he was also home with me that Saturday, and he had the same kind of back and forth thoughts about it. He's like, "Wow, this is awesome to do nothing," but then there was something that was like, "But why am I not doing anything?" And he couldn't just be there and just soak it in. He wanted to be doing something else, and I think you said to feel productive. But what is it? I would be curious to hear what other people had to say, but what is it that keeps us, if you are this way and you're listening, you need to email Brooke@centralnow.com or Eric@centralnow.com and tell us, but why is it hard to rest? Why is it hard to really have a day with no agenda? And then that inner battle of, but I'm not being productive. Like, where does that come from? Or why is that difficult for us to get over? Because that really does, as soon as you feel comfortable and you're like, wow, this day is awesome, you're like, oh, but I'm not being productive.
Right.
Like what is that from? Like, why do so many people struggle with that? I'd be curious to hear from
I
people.
think for me, it really is, it's a guilt thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel guilty.
Is it a pride thing?
I'm sure that there's an element of that for sure.
Not assuming you have pride issues,
No,
but I
no,
wonder
I mean,
if it.
I'm sure that there's a part of that, but like for me, and I think I feel bad because like I'll think, oh, I could be folding this laundry and that would help Adrian, or there's something I could vacuum or sweep and that would be, that would relieve Adrian of stress, or I could go in and do this and that would make this go smoother, or that would help out. And I think it's like I don't say it as in like I'm just such a selfless person, but I think there's like a guilt thing inside of me that I'm like, I could be doing something that would help somebody else out. And then instead of just like, I think I might need to be a little bit more selfish and be like,
but is it selfish?
I don't know. That's the thing.
No, it's not selfish.
But I think maybe that is part of it for me is it's like I feel like there's always something I could do for somebody else. And then to me, that feels like how is there an excuse not, like, it just feels like inside of me, I should always be doing that. Like, there's never a time when it's okay to say, I'm not going to help that person.
But
in me.
Okay, so here's this. Hayden and I had this conversation too. Is this becoming like a marriage counsel? Like, do we need to have Adrian and Hayden come?
I don't know.
But Hayden and I, like, there are situations and conversations we've had to have where we'll have to say, okay, family over ministry. But that line gets really, really thin, and it's not so black and white, because ministry is your heart and your livelihood, and it's a kingdom work. So how is kingdom work ever, not good or whatever? But like your family, prioritizing family over work, family over ministry, family is important. And two, I think if I'm not resting and honoring, a Sabbath day, then how can I be completely filled to be able to pour myself out for others in the best way that I can? So again, I believe that goes back to not only boundaries, but priorities. And if you value, whatever you're putting your value in is it matters. So, and not that putting value into ministry or family, that one is better than the other. It's not, but it's a priority, And so like it wouldn't be right if our lead pastor put us before his 3 daughters and Sarah, and he doesn't. But just if you think about it backwards like that, you'd be like, well, no, like family comes before your ministry. Your family is your first ministry. God literally gave you these humans and a spouse to take care of and to pour into and all of that. And so like that is your first ministry to really that's what I believe. And so, and of course, I feel like if that is healthy and thriving, that's great. But like, you were also entrusted this ministry of a congregation, but like not above your family. I don't think that's selfish. I think it's biblical.
Brooke's just dropping just truth conviction bombs here on the page.
But we all get there. We all walk that, you know.
It's so true.
But I do think
and Hayden and I are very similar.
You are, yeah. And I think Adrian and I are a lot of like in that because she also has to balance a bajillion and one things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she gets what it's like to be a teacher and a mom and a wife and all the things. And not only just a teacher, mom, and wife, but then you have all the after hour things, and then you have all the whatever. And it's a lot. But I mean, if we are not prioritizing rest and, you know, our families, I think we've got something backwards. And so I've been trying to be more intentional these last few months about that. And so is Hayden. And truly, I can just say from experience, just in this short amount of time, already being able to testify the difference has been just out of this world. Like there has to be something there because it's just been so much better. So
there's probably, because it's gone through my mind, and so I'm sure if it's gone through my mind, it's gone through something else. So, I mean, everything you said, I agree with.
Oh, wow.
100%.
I was getting ready for the next question. I'm kidding.
No, well, yeah. No,
I might not like it, but I agree.
Yeah, it's not easy, but you are 100% correct. That being said, I'm sure there are people that are listening to this, because again, this went through my head. It's like, okay, we need to rest. We need to do these things. We can all get on board with that and agree with that. But here comes the but. And this is a question.
Is it three letters?
No,
and a question mark. But how?
But yeah, so we do that, right? But we all, like, the stuff doesn't go anywhere. Like the responsibilities, the obligations, the to-do list are still there. So,
oh my gosh, I already have an answer to your question.
And so what are some practical, like, let's get like...
I need to be spiritual first.
Okay, well...
I finished your question, and I already got something for you.
So basically, what are some practical tips or things that we could do that would help us to maybe be more efficient in our to-do list, that would help us to then allow for like less guilt maybe in this idea of rest, because we can look and say, I got a lot accomplished.
Okay, so maybe I will do your practical thing because I think it'll tie into what the Lord says. Yeah. No? But okay, so practical, truly getting a calendar, a schedule for all the people in your family, you know, you and your spouse, whatever. If you don't have a spouse, just for you, it doesn't even matter. Like, get a calendar.
And you use Cozy Calendar. Maybe they'll sponsor us.
I don't know.
I don't know that. Go to Cozy Calendar.
I think it's COZI. Let me look.
Of course they couldn't spell it just the correct way.
Of course not. No, COZI. But I think they have a free option, and you can pay for one. It doesn't matter. And I honestly don't even know which option we have. But get a calendar, write stuff down. True. And another practical thing is every night before bed, Hayden and I always are like, okay, what do we have tomorrow? What do we have tomorrow? Or is there anything we didn't get done today? Like, whatever. We just like have a minute to talk about it for like, you know, really fast and just go over it. And that way we kind of have like a clear, you know, agenda for the next day. And with, you know, all the things you have going on, you have to have clear communication with that. So that's practical for sure. Saying no to things that come up is also practical. And praying about what to say no to is a great resource. But I really want to say that just like God honors our obedience with tithing, He honors our obedience with rest. So when you talk about, I have all these things on my to-do list, and if I'm resting and wasting time, these things still aren't getting done. So how can I rest but yet still be productive or whatever? So that, because I mean, sometimes that's a lot you can't really rest because you're busy thinking about it. And there's so many people who can relate to that for sure. But in testimonies, when you tithe, you know, your 10% to the church, when it doesn't make sense, or, you know, you're like, Lord, you know my income and you know my bills and you know how much my 10% is, you know, when you're obedient and you're tithing, time and time and time again, I personally have experienced God, stretching our budget in ways that truly just make no sense. It's only His doing. And I think a lot of people who have been obedient and faithful tithers can also say yes and amen. Like me too. I've experienced that personally and all the things. And I'm telling you, when you are obedient with the Sabbath day, when you're obedient with rest, God stretches your time. And it's really cool because it's, again, one of those things that on our own timeline, our own scale, our own agenda, you're like, I don't even have, whatever. I don't know how that's going to work, whatever. Same with my budget. I see these numbers. I'm doing the math. I don't know how it's going to work, but it does. So I really am a firm believer in when we're obedient, He truly not only stretches our money with our tithing, but He stretches our time when we rest.
You're on your A game.
Thank you.
Today for just throwing this topic on you.
Yeah.
Solid.
Well, sevens really do thrive, in situations like this. I love
That's good stuff.
Love it.
Well, I think too, I would say the things that I do well in this, because it really is the only way that I'm able to accomplish everything, is I definitely agree with writing it down. You've got to write. I get made fun of some because I still carry around old-fashioned notebooks.
You're a notebook guy.
I am a notebook guy.
You don't have a good taste in ink pens yet, but you have good taste in notebooks. We're working on the ink pen.
We will agree to disagree on the ink pen portion. Just side note, I like a good sharp pen. Like if it's not a 0.3 or 0.5, I have no use for it. I want to feel like I'm tearing the paper.
That's what it's
doing. And I believe if you could see my penmanship, I believe that I have top-notch penmanship,
especially for a guy. So if that's
fully believe
to the pen, then kudos.
It is a lot has to do with the pen. Anyways, that's your tips on ink pens for today. I think that so writing stuff down. I have a notebook. I write down it's less about I view it less as a to-do list. It's more of I need to get all these thoughts out of my head, because if I don't, I will forget them.
Oh yeah.
And so there's some things that are like, honestly, they're months down the road. They're not something I'm trying to check off today. It's just something that came in my head, or I had a conversation and I'm like, I need to write this down so that I can just constantly keep it in front of me.
Yeah.
So it helps me remember. So writing stuff down, if I have anything, whatever it is, I schedule it in my calendar. So I know, and I try to allot amount of time for it. That way I know, where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be, and I don't double book myself. And we've got like the very hipster, dry erase board, or not dry, chalkboard calendar that she fills out every month. We put, all the kids' stuff and all of our stuff. We try to keep updated. That helps because I'm a very visual person.
Yeah, me too.
And so visually being able to just walk by and see it and stare at the calendar. So I agree. Calendars definitely help. And then I would say, with all that, something that Adrian and I have gotten better at is, like you said, like just that quick, like, all right, what's tomorrow look like for you? We're still not great at it, but we have gotten better with that communication aspect of like, okay, what do the kids have tomorrow? Or what do you have going on? Here's what I have going on. And so that has been better for us. That has improved our busyness, I think, at least being able to wrap our minds around the busyness. I'm curious, just because like we're both doing the complement study. It's a marriage small group study that we're doing at our church right now. And I'm curious because in there is like they have date nights. You're supposed to do date nights. So have you and Hayden done any of the date nights? And two, because I know you have 3 children, 3 children and 2 dogs at home. So do you and Hayden like regularly schedule date nights? Like how frequent or often does that
Well, I'm glad
happen?
you brought this up because as you were talking just now, I also kind of thought about that. Being intentional. So how you mentioned how you and Adrian will write down stuff on your calendar, as you walk by, you can see it. So as you're looking at the month, okay, it's just now October. So you have the whole month of October filled, every Thursday's this, every, whatever. Well, then when you're doing that, schedule a date night. Just prioritize it just like you do everything else. So Hayden and I, we try to be very intentional about this because it was Usually people have 9 months and a few years to plan for 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we had 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we are, trying to be super intentional to like protect and guard these things, because also squirrel, it's so important for we're talking about family over ministry and all the family over, prioritizing all that. Sure. But like you and your spouse come before your children. That's also biblical, and so, it's God, and you'll hear, you've heard it. Yeah. It's God, and then you and your marriage, your spouse, and then your kids. It's just that order of operations. And so.
And if you were Carrie Job, you say, and your kids' kids, and your kids' kids,
yes.
and their kids, and your neighbor's kids.
Oh my gosh, I should have. Gosh. But yeah, so, I mean, it's prioritizing all that. It's biblical. It will be, blessed, and it'll be fruitful and awesome when we do that. And so with that being said, Hayden and I are like, okay, like we know better, so let's do better and all the things. Really protect our marriage, protect our jobs, protect our minds and our emotions, because, for a lot of reasons, but transitions can be very hard, and transitions are a lot. And at that time, which I shared, before, we moved, we had kids, we changed jobs, we, all happening at once. So we wanted to be very intentional about that. So we are fortunate in the sense of, because of the 3 children we have right now and the situation, that is theirs. We have one night right now a week where they get to go on a visit. And so when they are on their visit, Hayden and I have some time to be intentional about doing something together. Mm-hmm. I mean, and for us, if it is running to Menards or if it is doing that, to me, that still counts. If we go to Culver's after, or we go to Showdown or whatever, like that is a date night to me. It didn't cost us a lot of money. We're still kind of running errands and maybe we are being productive, but we were together and enjoying our time. And I think that, it was beneficial. But yeah, for the compliment series and the weekly date nights, that's usually when we try to do it. And it's usually on Monday. And, 1 week it was ordering mini tacos from Frosty Mug, and that was awesome. I love mini tacos from the Frosty Mug.
You do like mini tacos. Yes, I'm learning this.
So good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyways, but that was the date night. And then one time we went to, I said a minute ago, we went to Showdown in Menards, and I got a new front door. So, I mean, I don't know. You said it didn't cost you a lot of money. Okay. That wasn't intentionally our date night, but an errand. But yeah, so no, we try to be intentional about that. And, even getaways, on our anniversary, we had the kids we got them in April, and our anniversary was in July. So we had them for a few months. And so Hayden made a point to just do a overnight thing. And where did we go? Bottle Works. Is that what it's called? In Indianapolis or something like that. Yes. Is that right? So we went there just for an evening and then dinner, and then we left brunch that next day. But it was still an intentional getaway where we had family watch the kids, and we made prior arrangements, with all the things. But we put it on the calendar. All that to say, you have to put it on the calendar. Yeah. Or like you said, it doesn't get done, or I don't block off time for it, or I don't make arrangements. And so, I mean, I think, if you're intentional about that, then it helps.
Yeah, we do okay at times with scheduling that in. We were on a good run there for a while with Saturday nights. We would go and do something, whether it was just her and I or friends, and then, that doesn't always happen.
Oh, right. Saturday, of course. And it's honestly a little unrealistic, to do every single Saturday when you have kids and you have the job that you have, and, Adrienne has all the things she has going on, but you were intentional.
Yeah. So counts. I feel like maybe everyone has just listened in on a counseling session from me. I've never been to counseling, but maybe is this what it's like? I don't know. But I feel like I have a to-do list of things to go work on now. That's
so funny. So I do have one more thing.
Yes.
Because I have a feeling you're about to sign off. Was I right? Is that
I don't know.
What you're feeling?
I feel like I just have a lot to think about.
You're drained now. I can see it all over your face.
I'm just mentally. I need to rest.
Speaking of rest, I need to go
rest right now.
Yeah. No. Oh man, now I don't even remember what it was.
Oh boy.
I got so distracted. I guess it wasn't that important. The Lord just took it right out of my mind. So never mind. I don't have one more thing. The Lord said, hush, you've said enough.
You have worn him out enough. Yeah. So.
Oh.
It's back.
It's back. The Lord said, no, you can say it. Okay. The last point I wanted to make was when being a person that encourages others to rest. Because especially in workplace, you know, when you have so much to do and all of that. And I mean, you guys, we're so close. Like everyone we work with, we spend so much time with, and we, love each other, and we're so close, and whatever, And so it's like encouraging people to take a minute, and I think it really, when you're someone who encourages someone to rest, it's like permission. And so for us that struggle with the guilt that comes along with it, you're like, oh, you don't care that I'm resting, and then you can actually rest because you're not worried about, X, Y, and Z, and and I say that also to commend you. There are several people, especially Maria, who's like, you need to rest. But, one time things were very hard in my home. Hayden and I were exhausted with our transition, and you saw it all over my face. And I try not to complain about that. I'm not saying I don't ever complain, because I do, but I try not to. And I do try to balance my time, but I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, I'm not there enough, or I'm not there when they're there, or it looks different, so is that bad, or whatever. A, you've never made me feel like it's wrong or bad, or that I'm doing a poor job because it has to look different than others, or whatever. But B, you saw my exhaustion and you were like, go home. And to have permission from someone who sees you and cares about you and who's your boss, it was like, okay, not only do I have not a choice in the matter, but it was such a compliment that you cared to not only see, but then to say and recognize no, go home. And so Hayden and I just left and we rested, and we needed it. So being a friend and being someone who can give permission and encouragement to have those people in your life, when you can see that in them, I know it sounds so weird, giving them permission to rest, but encouraging them to rest, I think that's a huge key too. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think we probably, as a society, and especially if you are in a leadership position, I think that's probably an important thing to keep in mind, because we do a really good job of praising hard work and, going the extra mile and the above and beyond. We probably don't always do a very good job of praising, hey, I'm really proud that you went home and took some time for yourself. Or, we don't really reward that necessarily. So that is a good reminder, especially if you're in a leadership position over other people, to be mindful of that and to kind of encourage and almost give permission. Because I think sometimes, for somebody like me, that probably, unless I have that permission, then I probably wouldn't, even if I was resting, I probably wouldn't actually feel rest. Yeah. So that's good stuff. Good stuff there. I know that now I need to keep writing stuff down. I need to say no more. I need to say
Kirk,
no
what
more.
Have you learned today?
I'm recapping. This is my recap. I need to say no more, which is ironic because I've only been saying that for probably my entire life. So you can see how that's going. And then I need to, which the funny thing is I've actually gotten better at saying no. I'm still terrible at it, but I have improved, which tells you how bad it used to be. And I think the biggest takeaway is understanding, I think for all of us, understanding the biblicalness of rest, and not getting rid of the stigma of rest equals laziness, but understanding that if you are a follower of Christ, you are called to rest.
Yeah.
Because not he rest did. Maybe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's not rest necessarily. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, and rest will look different. I think that's the other thing I've taken away from this conversation. Rest will look different for everybody. Yeah. And that's okay too. Yeah. My rest doesn't have to look like somebody else's rest. So, good stuff. Thank you for counseling me. You sent me a bill.
Okay. Don't tip me.
Yeah, that was good. So hopefully you took away something from that. Maybe you need to turn this off and you need to go rest, whatever that is. And you want to do that?
No, I want to pray.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
I didn't know if you wanted me to or if you wanted to.
No, I'll pray whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so let's, Brooke's going to pray us out. This feels like a conversation we should pray out of. So
yeah,
she's going to pray
sure.
for you
sure.
and hopefully for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So before we do that, just a reminder to hit that like and subscribe button, and that way you can just get updated every time we drop an episode. You don't have to wonder, and give those ratings and reviews, and that is something that helps everybody out. So do that, and Brooke, you want to pray for us? And then we'll sign this baby off.
Yep.
All
okay.
Right.
Lord, thank you for our time together. Thank you for this podcast and the people listening. I just pray that you, Holy Spirit, can just minister to those who are listening, God, and those who need help just prioritizing things or identifying areas in their life where they need to create some boundaries, or maybe pruning in our hearts that, you need to do that help us to say no to things. And God, you just love us, and you modeled rest, and you want us to be at peace, and you want us to rest too. God, just help us navigate this during such a time in a society and in a culture that it just is kind of not always understood, or maybe it's a little backwards. But God, you wrote the expectations that we want to follow. You modeled it for us best. Help us to have the eyes to see and the discernment to know how to do it best. We just love you, and we just hope that what we had to share to minister to others was honorable to you, God. And we're just so thankful for all that you do. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, hopefully today you have learned that sometimes bringing the praise can look like rest. So that being said, every day and in every way, let's be people that bring the praise.